Well, hey there, Luskos. Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Levi.
I'm Jennie. Welcome back.
And we are your hosts. We have, Jennie, I would say, a beautiful conversation today. Beautiful episode today, don't we?
It's wonderful.
Honestly.
The journey that we go on.
I'm trying to pop my ears. You feel that?
Oh, I don't feel that, but I see you.
You can see it. Can
I
you feel
see
it?
you.
Do you ever have your ears pop in an elevator?
Yes.
Airplane?
Mhm.
Submarine?
It happens a lot. And actually, sometimes I'm just like walking around and it kind of like will like fog up and then go away. And I'm like, I think something might be wrong.
You need some swimming drops? No?
Maybe.
Oh, my left ear's not popping, so I don't know what's going on. I think I got a little congestion thing going on here. You know, it is the winter. There's a little congestion thing going on
No, but
here.
today's special. I love this conversation.
Yeah.
And the ebbs and flows of it and the story and the life.
Heartbeat.
Lots
of great things. Our friend David Nasser is on the conversation today. On today's episode, he has done so many things, worn many different hats, and wandered and weaved. But really, his story is the story of God's grace in his life. Radically saved, coming from Iran originally. Family fled as he was a young boy. We'll cover that. Has spent the last several years working in the space of ministry to those in the foster care system. He and his wife also, at a certain point, led for a very long time at Liberty University. That's where we originally met him there. And it's really amazing to watch God work in his life. He's an author, a storyteller, communicator, preacher, and he's a really great friend.
Yeah.
Really
Good
upbeat
man.
person,
Yep.
so kind, so full of life.
So
Every time you talk, you
encouraging.
just walk away like so encouraged.
Yeah.
Do you remember the cookies we ate at his house? That way we ate at his house and our kids were there, and the amount of cookies they bought that day were like overwhelming. Giant cookies. Do you remember that?
Oh, yes.
We were eating all these different cookies.
And we had sushi that day. And I
Sushi
remember
and cookies.
I remember clearly that they had a like a Yeti with drinks in it, but like unique drinks. So like there was like Topo Chico, but the kind of root beer they had was like, you don't get that everywhere. And it was just really like, I don't know, special.
Very gracious people.
Very gracious.
Good, definite gift of hospitality.
Yes.
That's for sure.
Yes.
And you gotta love, that's like one of those unsung, underappreciated, unrecognized forms of love. Like when they invite you into their house, it's just the care they go to the little details.
Yeah.
Really beautiful. So David Nasser. And here we are in the new year.
Here we are. Happy January.
You feeling all
Happy 2024.
You feeling all New Year's resolutioned out, or you still going strong?
I'm going strong.
Reading the New Testament this year?
Yep.
Anybody wants to can join us on that journey, by the way. If you Google Fresh Life Church Fit for the Fight, you can download our reading plan. If you, this 24 days in, want to jump in, do it. Don't even feel the pressure to catch up. Just start where we are.
I mean, I will say, especially going through the Bible last year, I love that we're just zoning in on the New Testament.
Yep.
And it's a chapter a day, and we read Monday through Friday. We don't have reading plan on the weekend. So
Right.
I feel like it's like if you were to join in right now, it wouldn't be horrible.
Do it. Yeah, we have the download for free at freshlife.church. And then you can, read with us. What's fun about that is that when we talk to people in the Luskos community, the Fresh Life community, whatever, it's like, hey, there's something to talk about. What did you like from today's reading? What did you like today? It just kind of centers us all together in that. And we'd love to have you join us. We are, of course, so excited as we head into movement conference season. There's a price jump tomorrow, January 25th, for the youth conference we put on every year. That's really the highlight of our year. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Big Fork, Montana, Rodeo Arena, youth groups and student groups, family groups from around the country. Amazing leaders serving at it.
Yes.
But the price does increase. So today could be a great day to get you and your family or you and your student group registered. If you register even one registration, you can add more later, but you're locked in at the price.
Rate. Yeah.
So if you think there's a chance you might want to bring your teenager, or your youth group, register for one, add in a couple more later as it goes on, but get your place staked now because the price is going up. And then, of course, our cruise coming in the summer, going to Rome, going to Greece, going to Turkey to see Ephesus. We'd love to bring you Carrie Job, Cody Carnes, Lisa Harper, Jen and I. You can go to inspirationtravel.com/LJL. That stands for Levi, Jennie Lusko. we'd love to have you come with us to Europe, learn about the Bible, teach through the book of some of Ephesians, a little bit of Rome, go through some of what Paul wrote to the Corinthians, and do so learning from the journey of Acts in real time, people, on a boat. We're excited about it.
It's going to be so amazing.
All right, well, now you can turn your attention to this wonderful little conversation with our friend David Nasser. Hey, well, David Nasser, welcome to Hey, it's the Luskos.
Man, it is so good to be with you. I love this podcast. I listen to it all the time.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Well, we're so glad to have you today.
Long-time listener.
First time caller. Well, we've done a lot of life together. We've been in the journey of life for a long time. Starting with your role back in the day at Liberty University, Office of Spiritual Development. That's how we first came together. You were gracious enough to have us out at Convo, and what you built there with the just incredible, really. So many college students hungry for God, not just the one they had to be at in the morning. What impressed me the most when I first came was there was the one that they're getting graded on, but then the evening chapel that you built up, this voluntary, people could come if they want to come, and it flowed more, and the worship and honestly the culture. I remember, just it was very much your spirit, you and Jennifer's heart, like the sense of honor of the students who wrote us notes. I remember standing in a circle before that chapel started, and there were students sharing what from their different books they had read of ours or whatever that meant a lot to them. And it was just very clearly, you guys' spirit and calling, and what you built there is really incredible.
Well, first of all, I'm not just saying this because I'm on the podcast. Like we had 88 convocations a year.
Gosh.
And in a school year.
Yeah.
3 times a week. And so when you do that, you have a ton of guests. And I mean this when I say this, like your family, some of our students' most requested favorite guests. And I think the 7 years I was there, Levi, I think you came and preached for us at least 3 times.
That's right.
And I remember specific conversations post God bringing your family there. And this is one of my favorite things, by the way. You never came alone. You always came as a family.
We roll deep. The Luskos roll deep.
I can tell you specific conversations with students afterwards where like the word that you brought, bro, was for that moment, for that student, life-changing. And I can't tell you how often like we would just have our phones blow up of like, can Levi come back? When can the Luskos come and be a part of this thing? And I'm so grateful for you, like the way God's used you to really invest into the next generation. And not just you, but Jennie, you too. Like behind every successful man is a worn out woman.
That's funny.
What are you saying?
What's
You look worn out?
No. She looks good.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding.
He's saying you're the secret sauce. You're the secret sauce. No, it's true. But how many years were you at Liberty, David?
I was there 8.
8 years. Yeah. And man, what's funny is like that changed our life coming out there. Honestly, not just what you built, the culture and the behind the scenes and the team. I still stay in touch with some of the guys I met through that season, Dylan Seeger, and who now works for Pro Pickleball. Have you heard that?
Yes. I mean, he was our number one. Dylan was our number 1 tennis seed.
Right.
And then I'm a big tennis fan.
Yes. I know. We should talk a lot of tennis here. Yeah.
My dog's name is Rafa. You know what I mean? Like,
right. You bested McEnroe at a convocation.
I mean, that was insane. I think I was holding his honorarium check in my back
pocket. This is real, though. He got a point on John McEnroe.
No.
They turned the convo floor into a tennis court.
Oh, I remember that.
And they played, and John thought he was just kind of phoning it in and didn't know David was out for blood. He didn't know he was looking for his moment in the sun.
Hey, you're a tennis buff. How fun that day. I mean, like you're driving to work, basically. And you have booked McEnroe, Roddick, Chang.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
stupid.
And we would have a rule like do not fangirl our guests. Like don't bring your 37 Levi Lusko books to Congo. Like leave them alone.
Yeah.
But that day,
all bets are off.
Oh, listen, I had a piece of tennis from the net from when Roddick won the Davis Cup. I had a ball from when
Oh my
this was the ball that
gosh.
they told me you used when you beat Borg, and I just had them all laid out on my
This is it. Just touch them all.
He called me, McEnroe called me Father David the whole day. He thought I was
That's
like,
funny.
Father David.
That's the best when people call you Reverend or Father or Bishop. Or something. Okay, so yeah, what I was trying to say though is meeting that we through that being at Convo, we ended up all of our kids ended up at Liberty University online for their education, and like I said, we stay in touch with Dylan, who is incredible, and he came to an event we spoke at recently, and I thought he was still at that Baptist church in Dallas, Prestonwood. I was like, bro, how's things at Prestonwood? And he's like, oh, I'm not. I'm working for Pro Pickleball now. He runs the tour. I was like, good. Yeah.
Amazing.
He's quite good at pickleball too, right?
He's amazing. Again, anybody who comes out of that tennis world, they have an advantage in picking up pickleball.
Sure.
I think he's like nationally ranked in pickleball.
Unbelievable. Are you still on the tennis court now, Sam?
Yeah. One of the best things about moving to Nashville is Tomlin and I play quite a bit. And so we're about the same level.
Sure.
And you could we're next door neighbors, and you can just about from our home walk to tennis courts.
Oh my gosh. So that's amazing.
So you guys should move to Nashville just so we can play.
That's funny. Well, you would smash me that because Tomlin, although I have improved a lot since then, but Tomlin and I played one time at an event and he destroyed me. He was like, it was like 6'3", 6'3" or 6'3", 6'4" or something like that. It was bad news. Yeah,
he's a good player. He's country club. He's got country club form. Like really pretty topspin forehand.
Yeah,
really consistent.
Great placement.
I wonder if he would appreciate his form being called pretty.
I think so. As a tennis player, you call my tennis form pretty, I'd be pleased, but no one's going to say that, You
know what I mean, Jennie?
Yeah, I do.
You got that someone paid $65 an hour to teach this guy the Western grip. You know what I mean? I've got horrible form. I beat you on, they call me Dinker Dave. I just get the ball back. You're going to win the first set with me, but I'm going to outlast you for the second and third set. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just hustle and hope the best happens. Tomlin's got really pretty form. I mean, his forehand is because his serve is consistent.
Yeah, you might say he's a good baller. It's who he is. It's who he is. Yes, and ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome for that joke. Okay,
wow.
so
I do want to say real quick,
please.
You mentioned it, but David, I was just thinking about the intentionality that you led with at Liberty that really impacted me, and
which is just characteristic of who he is,
right? And I just wanted to say thank you for that because any time that we've gotten to spend with you guys, but even just getting to spend around people who have been under your leadership is just inspiring. And the intentionality behind, like Levi said, the notes that were written and some college students drawing these incredible things. I was just amazed. And so I just thank you for that impact in my creativity in my life and what we get to do. And so it's just beautiful.
So kind. Thank you. And, it's such a testament. And I think you'd say the same about your team of surrounding yourself with people who are better than you at what you do.
Yeah.
We just had an amazing group of people that were really good at hospitality and really great at intentionally blessing people where it doesn't feel like flattery, which is fake honor, which is dishonor, but it feels like genuine honor. And I got to tell you, it's easy. When our culture is asking the question of hey, this week we've got, for example, Levi and Jennie coming. Is there anyone who's been touched by them? And if so, do you want to just put it on a note so we can put it on their bed? So when they arrive, they can read the impact that they've had.
Yeah.
Are you kidding? It's really easy to get college students to talk about how at session 3 at Passion, your message shifted the trajectory of their life. And so all we had to do was kind of get out of the way.
Yeah.
I felt like I was just the information booth at the mall. That was my job for 7 years, just getting out of the way and letting the students just really lead and just helping them in that sense.
Wow.
Our greatest moments at Liberty, the 8 years we were there when we were looking back, on that season, our single greatest moments were all students, not just student led, but students' ideas, students think. The biggest names we ever had as guests, they never came because I knew the right person or we could write a big enough, honorarium check or whatever. I'll tell you one quick story. Like we tried and tried and tried and tried to get Steph Curry to come, and he never would. I mean, he's like, why am I coming to do somebody's chapel, basically, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And then we had a student who was a Congolese refugee, and he came to us and said, hey, when I was a refugee in a refugee camp in the Congo, all of us children, we would get these jiggers that would come through our toes, these worms. And so I've been collecting shoes all my college years. So he by himself and his family had collected 10,000 pairs of shoes, and he wanted to distribute them to refugees back home. He just had a passion for people. So check this out. So we threw that idea to Steph Curry and said, we've got a guy who's got 10,000 pairs of shoes. We'd like for every student to bring one of their own. So we'll have like 25,000 pairs of shoes. Would you like to come do this shoe game thing with us?
Oh my gosh.
And he said yes, but he didn't say yes to Liberty. He didn't say yes to me. I didn't know him. He didn't know me. He said yes because what the passion point, the point of interest was this refugee wants to give 25,000 pairs of shoes away. Yeah. And so he brought Under Armour to the table. They brought kids' shoes. We went to Nike because we're a Nike school and said, hey, you going to let Under Armour outdo you? They brought shoes.
There we go. A little competition.
Honestly, you look back at that and all of that had nothing to do with me. Yeah. It was this kid named Emmanuel who just felt like God gave him a vision, and our job was to equip the saints to do the work of the ministry. Mm-hmm. And so people would go, how'd you get Steph Curry to come? And I'd be like, dude, he turned me down every week.
It wasn't me, yeah.
It was Emmanuel.
Wow.
He said yes. So, isn't that what ministry is really ultimately about?
Very
it's
good.
Get out of the way.
Well, I'll say for me, the end user
story
of it, on being on the receiving end of that kind of intentionality and story and narrative and honor, it's like Montana to Lynchburg is like 3 planes, a whole day of traveling east.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever the day had been before and all the things. But then I remember checking into the hotel and tired and trying to think, okay, I got to preach tomorrow. But then when I came to the hotel bed and there was this stack of notes and I read the note from the student saying what the third session at Passion meant to him, it was like, man, I was overcome with emotion, just sense of gosh, it was not like some big opulent show of whatever. You maybe speak places where you feel like there's a little bit of sense of you're trying to buy affection or whatever. And not that it's always that way, but this was just such a simple, kind thing that really gave me a sense of of gratitude over what God's done. It recharged my battery. So I'll never remember that. I'll never forget that rather. And then, getting across paths with you and following your journey, because the last 2 years you've not been at Liberty, you've been at For Others, this charity nonprofit that Chris Tomlin runs, and hearing that, if I can do, let's see how good I can do at this. My sense is it's kids who are in the foster program who have kind of aged out because everyone knows that kids need to be adopted or taken care of in the foster program. But once they're 18, they still have needs, but no one's looking out for them. And so now it's who's going to mentor, serve, help, keep them from ending up in the system or repeating the crimes and sins of their parents. Is that correct?
Man, you are 100% right about 1/3 of our vision, which is gotcha. I think it's interesting that you love that piece because it's the most neglected piece and probably my favorite thing that we do as well. But let me just quickly say there's 3 things that For Others does. Well, let me back up and say years ago, Chris had a dream, an actual dream, was in bed sleeping, had a dream about driving to an event and a big concert event, worship event, and seeing a neglected, abandoned child on the side of the road and taking the child and bringing him to stage before he woke up. And that dream coming into fruition was, how do I leverage this moment God's given me, the platform that God has graciously handed me? And Chris's Time Magazine calls him the most sung artist in the world. 50 million people a week in churches around the world sing a song penned by this psalmist, right? Modern day psalmist named Chris Tomlin.
Yeah.
And so he said, how do I leverage the moment to like do something for these children who've been abandoned? That launched into a conversation with a guy named Darren Whitehead, who's our pastor here in Nashville, saying, hey, what about foster children? And then they launched Angel Armies. And when I came on board 2 years ago, we shifted the name because we wanted every bit of all hands on deck with Chris and Lauren, but we wanted other hands to join us as well. Matter of fact, the week we changed the name, Need to Breathe came on. Another artist came on. And 2 years later,
because it wasn't tied to one of his songs.
That's right.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like just immediately connected to that, like you just said. And so what we do is we focus on three things. How do we prevent? That's the first one. How do we prevent children that are in the vulnerable state of life, in the welfare state of life, to how do we prevent them from being separated from their families? And so the first one is prevent. Like, how do we help kids not be placed in the foster care system? So right now there are 4 million children in America that are in the vulnerable state. They're in the welfare state. And there are about 400,000 that are in the foster care system. And so how do we stop that from happening? So like this year, we helped right around 31,000 children not be placed in the system. That's the preventative work upstream, right? Then the second one is, all right, so now they're already in the system. That 400,000 that are in the system. So there's prevention, but then the second one is how do we provide for these kids that are in the system? Average child in the system in your state, Montana, in my state, Tennessee, average child in the system gets bounced around 7 different homes, in their journey in the foster care system. And so that's 7 different times when they're being told you're not good enough to keep. That's 7 different times when the enemy whispers. So how do we minimize that trauma? How do we provide counseling? How do we pay for adoptions? How do we pay for reunification classes so they can be placed out of the system? And so there's the prevention piece, that's upstream. Then there's the provision piece. How do we provide all for all the kids that are in it? And then the third one is prepare. And that's the one you touched on, Levi. It's these kids that are aging out, about 20,000 a year in America's system age out. And a lot of them age out of the foster care system and age right into the homelessness system, age right into the,
incarceration, drug
system.
addiction. Yeah.
That's right.
Wow.
They're prime pickings for the enemy to go, you thought he was bad in the system. Here's the new system.
Well, because now they're not a cuddly, cute orphan, to use terrible language. They're an adult, and they're expected make better choices. But they weren't given the tools. They didn't have parents. They didn't have love. They didn't get hugs. Right? I mean,
100%.
Wow.
So you nailed it right there. So like, because the few things you just said are exactly what it takes. So it's too late for them to be adopted, but it's not too late for them to get hugs, be loved, belong. And so the key to that, the third P is the preparation piece is honestly mentorship. So, hey, what if we found a couple like the Luskos out there that went, you know what? God's not calling us in this season. We've prayed about God's not calling us to adopt, but we can mentor a 19-year-old little girl. We can open our house to that. And so what we've been doing recently is we've been really focused on the mentorship stuff. That's the 3 Ps. And Chris and Lauren have given their life to this. Yeah. I think he focuses more, honestly, he and the sport, I think they focus more of their energy on this than he does on leading worship and being out on tours. They are just all hands on deck because we really believe that God's called us. You don't change a generation, you raise a new one. And we really believe God's called us to step into this. I think a part of what God wants to do in revival is training this next generation of kids and breaking the curse of abandonment and loneliness. And the difference between Donald Miller the other day said something I couldn't shake. We were in this little cohort thing. He said the difference between a villain and a superhero, if you watch like the Marvel movies and everything, the difference between a villain and a superhero, if you watch the Batman backstory and the Joker backstory, right, is how they dealt with loss and hurt and pain.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So you got a kid in Montana who's going through hell on earth because of abandonment, abuse, all of these broken things, right? So what if we rescue? What if we step into their life? And honestly, I think that's how we're raising a next generation of who is the next Levi Lusko. Like one day Louis and Levi and Beth Moore. And one day we're gone. So where's the next Jennie Lusko?
Yeah.
I think that the next great author, pastor, missionary might very well be someone who goes, I was 14 years old and someone cared enough to say, you know what? I got a spare bedroom in my house. Why don't I adopt?
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I can mentor somebody who's aging out. So I think the difference between a villain and a hero, for lack of better terms, is that someone intercepts someone's life. And I'm not a foster child, I know, but I'm literally a living example of that happening in my life. I can attribute so much in my testimony that at an intersection of like need and desperation, someone showed up. And so it's personal to me, you know, and I love our name, For Others, so much. So often these days, the church is known more for what it's against than who it's for.
Yeah.
And man, what if like this is our finest hour? You know, what if we just step into this moment and step in and so that's what For Others is about. I love this organization.
So stupid good.
Beautiful.
I think there's probably some Luskatiers, that's what we call our listeners, of course, as you know, who are like, man, I want to be a part of that. Maybe I can't adopt someone, but I can, like you said, the mentorship is, how does it work specifically? If they go to the For Others website, what happens next?
So we're an amplifier model. Everything we do is we bring awareness and then we bring empowerment. And empowerment means we pick really good organizations that are actually heads down in the trenches doing the work. And then we connect people to them. So if they'll just go to forothers.com, they can see, different ways to get involved. But like, if you want to adopt, we're going to connect you with Lifeline. If you're listening, by the way, and you're going, I'm a foster parent, and I always listen to the Luskos when I'm on the treadmill or on my way to carpool, and you're like, I'm just overwhelmed. One of our partners gives free trauma counseling to foster parents. Wow. If you just recently, if you're a single mom and you're vulnerable at like possibly losing your children, we have a partner called Care Portal. They come into the life of someone, meet the immediate needs so that they can stop the hemorrhaging, right, and of loss. And so if you have a moment, if you have a need, go to forothers.com. You can email us. You can see our partners and ways that we serve. And we'd love to just figure out how to serve you. We're pretty organic in the way that we do that. But again, we don't do the work. We're just a big flag.
You're the intermediary. What component do you utilize for the mentorship? That third that obviously is sparking joy in me.
Yeah, man. It's called Connections Homes. And it's an interesting one in the sense that we kept hearing about this lady in Georgia who was like the Yoda of mentorship. I'd go to meetings going, we need mentorship. We need mentorship. And Tomlin kept saying, we need to be the Uber, the disruptor of mentorship. And he kept saying, we need like in the dating apps, you know how like people just put their name in and this swipe right, whatever. He said, Tomlin kept having this idea of like, we need to create a platform by which people who are willing to mentor will get on the platform. People who want to be mentored will get on the platform and we can connect them. Well, it's oversimplified, but brilliant. Like what if that exists? And so, we found this lady in Georgia. Her name is Pam, and she's the little lady with the secret sauce, dude. Like she is baller. I mean, if you saw her, you'd be like, what a sweet little Southern lady. Back up, because she's and she loves mentorship, and she has been doing it in Georgia for year after year after year. By the way, it's also personal for her. She's adopted over 10 kids herself, and then she mentors. So we love what she was doing. It was ultimately spiritual formation. Mentorship is just a fancy way of saying discipleship. Yeah. And so we went to her and said, how do we get you to scale? How do we take you across the country? She started crying and said, look, I've been praying for somebody to help me. And so we've been working with her. So we've been creating the platform, with an app. And we're like right in the beta stage of that right now. Mm-hmm. And then Pam is going around the country and building her thing out. So she was in Georgia. We just paid for her to staff out and go to Texas, to go to Virginia, and go to Tennessee. And so that's been our mentorship thing. So I'm being honest to say, like, if you're listening to this right now and you're in Salt Lake, we don't have necessarily that app, that platform ready to go with Connection Homes in Salt Lake yet. But we go at the pace of relationships, right? And she's doing great. But I think in a couple of years, she'll have a program.
It'll be everywhere. Yeah.
Wow.
But that said, if someone's listening and they're like, I just want a mentor, just ask Siri for the closest children's home. Go to it's not hard to find someone that you can organically walk into, or honestly, go to your pastor.
Yeah.
And ask your pastor, like, how can we be foster friendly as a church? How can we step into the life of children who need to be mentored, who are aging out? And you probably are 2 phone calls away from the DCS office with a pretty long list of children that are aging out or just go to a homeless shelter and you're going to find them. What we like about the program that Pam has is that it's got a lot of the accountability in it. It's got a lot of it automates the background check for the mentor.
Which you need, But even just the thought of like the confidence that's going to come from sitting at a dinner table, going to a restaurant, these little life skill things that maybe no one ever teaches you, just to give you confidence in, having that in life. I mean, it's really, really, really special to think about it.
Think of the stuff that your kids it's caught, not taught, right? Think of all the things your kids saw. Like, I was listening to one of your podcasts the other day, and I don't know if it was different piggy banks or different buckets or different, like, this is for tithing.
Sure.
This is for investment. This is for, like, you're training up a child in the way it should go so that it will not depart from it.
Yeah.
And it's just marinated in from like birth up, right?
Yeah.
And so now you're seeing the fruit of all of that with your own children. Well, imagine children who have none of that. No one's taught them how to cut up celery. No one's taught them how to iron their shirt. No one's helped them understand the principles of giving, of generosity. Like, so much of that is just, if you just walk into the life of a 19-year-old and say, you're not like trying to do long form Bible study every day with them. That can happen too. But it's more like, just come eat dinner with us.
Yeah.
And let me show you what a garbage disposal does.
Totally.
Right. Yeah.
Totally.
It's good.
We were mentoring this young man. And the moments I remember the most, were not like the moments when we were going through Colossians. We did that.
Sure.
I remember taking him to the beach. And he walked out. He'd never seen the ocean. And he looks at me and he goes, it's so loud.
Right.
I go, what do you mean? He goes, the ocean's loud. And he taught me, like, all this time I've been in the ocean, I've never like stopped and thought about the roar, God's roar through the ocean. He was like, it's louder than I thought. And I thought, I just taught him what he's never seen the ocean. You know what I mean? We went to Panera. And he had seen a billboard of the bread bowl his whole life. Somebody had put a billboard in the hood where he lives.
But he never had one.
He was like, oh, it's an actual thing. I was like, yeah, dude. It's
and
like
you can eat it when you're done. It's the best. Yeah. It's like a month's worth of carbs in one meal.
Wow.
He was like, what are you talking about? Like, you eat the bowl?
Wow.
And and honestly, what that was like, we just went to eat.
Yeah.
And we take for granted so many of the things that we afford our own children, that God's going, I am the father to the fatherless, but the way that I am the father to the fatherless is you find the fatherless. You father them.
Yeah.
And so, we adopted my son, Rudy. I don't know. Rudy loves you, by the way.
29.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. And I can't tell you, like, I've gotten 10x what he's gotten out of the adoption. It's best thing we ever did was adopt that young man, as far as like the lessons I've learned, the things that he's given me. And so, yeah, you're going in there to like try to rescue someone, but then honestly, like, they end up rescuing you.
Wow.
They end up doing so much for you. And so,
yeah, geez.
That's it too,
Well, David, thanks for sharing all that.
Yeah.
Again, that website's forothers.com for those listening who are like, man, I want to get more information. Check this out. I love what Chris and Lauren have started, what you've built out, how you've been leading it. Want to shift gears. You bringing up Rudy, I wanted to kind of get a little more biographical. Family wise, obviously you and your wife, Jennifer, have been married for a long time, right? How long?
29?
Almost 30 years.
Okay, so 29 years married. You've got Rudy, then you've got Grace as well, who just got married, right?
Grace just got married in South Africa. And
she's living in South Africa?
No.
Oh.
She got married in Cape Town, South Africa.
Yeah.
Summer, but then they're living here in Nashville. She just finished college, and she's finishing up. She's taking the LSAT to prep for law school.
And she's like super justice minded and legal, and obviously, you said she wanted to be a lawyer as a very young girl, right?
Yeah, she is justice, academic, super intellectual. Rudy is dyslexic as can be, like misspells Jesus with a G. But just charming and fun and great. And, even when we were at Liberty and college basically was free, he didn't take it. He was like, I'm good. Okay. Like he would try. So Rudy's not your academic type. He is your but he has such a heart for orphans and foster children. And he actually works for others.
Okay. Wow. And he's married as well, right? Been married for a bit.
Married. And and they're expecting their second.
Okay, and I was gonna say you have already one, and this is your second grandbaby.
That's right. Avery is our first granddaughter, and man, wait till you're a grandparent.
Is it as good as we've heard?
We can't wait.
It is so fun, so fun. I mean, having them local is amazing. It is so great, So yeah, we love it.
And what are they gonna call you to? What's your names?
They call me Pappy.
Yes.
But she's not been saying it right. She's too young, but I'll teach her. I want to be Pappy.
That's your goal. Okay.
I love it.
And then what do they call Jennifer?
It's kind of fun. But she calls me Poppy. But when she gets older, we'll
fix it. We'll steer her in the right direction.
Call me Pappy. Yeah. And they call her Georgie. And I don't know how we got there, but yeah. Georgie.
So cute.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. All right. And going back, we're just kind of peeling back. How did you and Jennifer meet originally?
Yeah, man. We met in prison. No, I'm just kidding. We didn't meet.
No, you were at a mixed population prison?
She was a guard.
Okay.
I was an inmate.
Oh, she was the guard.
No. Oh my gosh.
No, we didn't. No, we met. It's interesting, man. We met at Covenant College at a youth camp in the summer. I was the intern for the speaker at the camp. Intern meaning I sold his T-shirts and his books in the lobby.
Of course, yeah.
And
paid or unpaid internship was it?
Paid in like $100 a week.
I gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
By the way, he was his name was Rick Stanley. He was Elvis Presley's stepbrother.
Outrageous.
And had become a believer. And so, I sold his book, "The Touch of Two Kings." You get it?
Yes,
Elvis.
I got you.
Whoa!
I see what he did there.
Yep. And so I was the intern, and she was a camp counselor, and we met because we got teamed up as a small group mom and dad.
Okay.
But here's the weird thing: her boyfriend, only guy she'd ever dated for 3.5, almost 4 years, was a small group dad for another group.
Oh.
So when we met, she already had a boyfriend.
Okay, and how did it all go down? Did you like her right away?
I liked her right away. I was like, oh, who's this girl? Because I mean, I'm watching her lead spiritually, that small group. She's beautiful and godly. And so I was smitten, but she had a boyfriend. So then the next year, first year I was intern. Next year I was doing the morning sessions at the camp.
You had leveled up a little bit. Yeah, there you go.
So then she came back to camp and then we talked. And then I made a play. I know this sounds ungodly, but I made a play. So I asked her, what? Tell me about what you want to do. What's your long-term plans in life? And she had just finished a Keith Green, in depth, beyond his lyrics kind of thing.
Reading the book,
yes.
Have you read? Was it No Compromise? That book's amazing.
It's amazing.
Yes. And she loved his music, but she had just kind of done the deep dive on him during that summer. And so she was talking about wanting to put all the chips in with God and just doubling down on whatever, Lord, I'm a yes. I don't need to know what's on the other side.
Wow.
And I said to her, I said, well, your life just seems so safe. Like you've got the perfect little youth group and the perfect little boyfriend and the perfect, like everything is so safe. Like Keith Green, like where's the risk? Where's like throwing in the end zone, you know? And of course I was talking about like take a risk, like, buy bad stock.
Oh my
And
god.
she wouldn't have it, dude. She was like, yeah, thank you. No, thank you. But then, bro, fast forward 1 year later, and we hadn't talked. And I found out through a common friend that she had broken up with the guy. And I just went after it. I was like, oh, she's available. And
You
so
took your moment.
I took my shot, man. And I asked her to go on a date, and she said yes. And then 3 months later, we got engaged, and we haven't looked back. You know.
Mm.
So yeah, so that's how we met, and that's how we ended up together. But
Wow.
That's
yeah,
beautiful.
there's more to it, but
Of course.
it's crazy. I mean, I came from, my story's like,
Yeah, I do want to get into that a little bit because you were born actually in Iran,
right.
which is wild, and you guys fled Iran. Were you 9 or 10 years old?
I was, yeah. Before I do that, I want to finish this one thought about Jennifer. Like she came from she was a good Southern Baptist girl, you know, went to Disciple Now, Disciple Later. She had the Pulse, she had the Sprinkler, Kumbaya. She was a counselor, you know, at all the events. She never missed a tithe check growing up. Like, you know, she was like, you know, just a very sheltered, good, you know, not a perfect, but like I came from so much mess, so much, you know, and somehow God just brought the two of us together, you know, and it's such a beautiful story of,
Incredible. Well, he knows what he knows what he's doing, even though neither of you, on paper, thought probably had each other, and as the story that would end up being written, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. 100%. But yeah, like you were asking earlier, like, so I'm from Iran, and I'm basically a refugee. And so in 1979, the Iranian Revolution happened. I call it religion gone wrong, when the Ayatollah Khomeini and his religious zealots overthrew the government in Iran. And when that happened, my father was high ranked in the military in Iran at that time. And so I remember those days. I literally remember soldiers coming to our school and during the revolution and putting a gun in my forehead because of who my father was and threatening my life. I remember we lived in the army base in Iran, and when my dad served, and I remember soldiers coming to our house, grabbing my dad and dragging him out of our home. And the reason I said they were dragging him was because my mom had her hands around my dad's leg, and she just kept begging, "Just kill him quickly! Just kill him quickly!"
Jeez.
Because they were taking people and slowly torturing them to death. And my mom was just begging them to spare him a torturous death and kill him quickly. And then in God's sovereign grace, like my dad came back that day and wasn't killed. And so the revolution happened. We knew we needed to escape. And so in a pretty dramatic fashion, we escaped from Iran, and we came to America as refugees.
What
And
city did you end up in the U.S.?
Yeah. My dad had taken flight training in Fort Hood in Killeen, Texas. And so we escaped from Iran the same time that the American hostages were held in the American embassy in Iran. And so we were stuck in Germany for about 9 months. And then this military family that my dad had befriended when he was in the army base in Fort Rucker, flight training and everything, they became our sponsors. And so when we moved 9 months later and God opened the doors for us to come to America, we moved to Killeen because that's where the sponsors was. Plus, my dad was a helicopter pilot. So he felt like, well, maybe I can go to this army town and become a helicopter pilot. I can become an instructor, you know? And so we moved to a military town. So by the way, imagine during the Iranian hostage situation where everybody's watching on TV, Americans burn the American flag, call America the great Satan and all that.
The Iranians were doing that.
Yeah, we move into not just America, but patriotic military town
in Texas.
Dang.
And you're like, "Hi, we're from Iran. Hi, how are you?" Yeah,
it's wedgie waiting to happen, bro. You know what I mean? It's like we parachute in. I got the wrong language, the wrong clothes, I'm completely fish out of water. It would be like today, someone from the Gaza Strip moving into, a very like patriotic environment in America and going, where are you from? And they go, well, I'm
Palestinian. Yeah.
Palestinian. And people immediately associating that with, well, then that must mean that you're one of the bad guys.
Yeah.
And so,
Wow.
so we moved in, and for years I was this outcasted kid, who basically was kind of a loner. And I just remember thinking, man, we've escaped to America to find refuge, and it doesn't feel safe. If we've come here for safety, it doesn't feel that way. And I was the kid that ate his lunch alone every day. I was a kid that heard every nickname, every 7-Eleven joke, turban joke. I got called Bean Dip. I'm not even Mexican. I was like, you're not even
Dude,
accurate.
you're like wrong country.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
And for years, I was just this outcasted kid. And until the day my freshman year in high school was about to start. And my dad felt sorry for me. It was the last day of the summer, first day before, next day we were going to go to high school. And my dad heard me crying in my bedroom. He comes in and says, what's wrong? And I told him, I said, look, I don't want to go to school tomorrow. I get bullied by the kid that gets bullied by everybody else. I'm like bottom of the food chain. I don't like school here. It's not working out for me. And so he felt sorry for me. And so my dad, out of pity and wanting to help, took me to the mall and gave me this extreme makeover to help me, all this different stuff. And I went to school the next day, same insecure kid on the inside, but made over on the outside. Mm-hmm. And instantly I went from, I call it geek to chic, I found out that people will sometimes be your friend more based on like the label that you wear than the character of who you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And my high school years became that. I mean, my high school years, I went from the kid that nobody ever hung out with to learning how to
work the system.
Yeah. I learned how to end up at the right lunchroom table. I learned how to dump the right girl right before she could dump me, to climb the social ladder. Honestly, I learned how to be cold to people, to be perceived as cool to people. And at least when I was a nobody, I was David Nasser the nobody, but I completely sold out. You know where it says in scripture, what good is it for a man to gain the whole world, but to forfeit his soul?
Yeah.
I'd completely sold out. And so on paper, my high school years look like, hey, things are going good. Like all of a sudden I'm kind of popular. All of a sudden, things are going well. But honestly, I was just this kid playing the game, and more suicidal, more vulnerable than I'd ever been. Because even your friends at that moment are just fabricated friendships, right?
Right.
And so I graduated from high school, like barely graduated from high school because all my energy had gone into like partying. And I was in a car with a buddy of mine on a Saturday night. And to be really honest, we were smoking weed. And while we were passing a joint back and forth, he invited me to church.
Wow.
And so I went to church the next day with him. And they saw like one of the biggest partiers at the school show up at they didn't see me as like the Muslim Iranian. They were like, that's the guy at school that throws the keg parties. Mm-hmm. That's the guy at school, and man, I'm literally the product of a youth, not group, a youth ministry that just thought, oh, we don't have to go to the 1040 window to reach a Muslim. He's coming to our church. And 7 Monday nights in a row, they had this thing called visitation. 7 Monday nights in a row, these Christians came to my house. And they sat there and they shared the gospel. And they shared the gospel. And every Wednesday night, they would also come to my house and drag me to church. Every Sunday morning, somebody would drive up and drag me to church. And I say drag me, but I wanted to go because love is a magnet, And so, yeah, I'm a product of like people that just cared enough. People that cared enough. They thought, you know what? If you're important to God, you're important to us. Mm-hmm. And so that's how I started going to church.
And how would because from my understanding, the Islamic culture and religion are pretty interconnected in very intense ways. So when you're pulling away from the Islamic faith towards Jesus, that kind of also feels probably to your family like you're rejecting culture too, and just who your family is, right?
No, dead on. I think you nailed it. I mean, first of all, let me just say this: the most devout I ever saw my father as a Muslim was the night I became a Christian.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So I started going to this church, and one night the preacher was preaching, and he wasn't cool and hip, like it wasn't like, don't think like Jonathan Pokluda cool, like think like older gentleman with a comb over, King James only, sweating out of places that don't even have glands. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
not relevant, but anointed.
Yeah.
Right? And so this guy was preaching, and I just remember thinking, I don't know if somebody handed this guy a sticky note with like all my stuff, but everything he's saying, I was like, that's me, that's me, that's me. And when you're lost, you think of it as like fear, but it's actually the conviction of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
It's the awe of God. It's the good kind of fear. And so I just felt convicted. And during the invitation, because I was at their church, I thought this stuff's starting to get to me. So I got up and I left, and I thought, I'm not letting him in my house again. I'm done. And I walked into my house, and my the presence of God's Spirit, the Holy Spirit, was thicker in my house than it was even in the building,
Wow.
And that night I became a Christian. Well, my parents were out of town. So Levi, like 2 hours later after I become a Christian, in my bedroom, my mom and dad walk in the house. They hear me crying in my bedroom. My dad walks in. He goes, what are you crying? And I told him, I said, I became a Christian tonight. I just just let it, like the dam breaks, right? I just tell him I didn't have lingo. I didn't know Christian lingo. I'm just telling him what happened. And I remember that night my dad saying, you can't be a Christian, we're Muslims. And I was like, we are? Yeah, we'd never been. But all of a sudden, I think the night I became a Christian, he had lost his position in the army. They had lost their fortune when they left. They'd lost so much of their pedigree. And now, because of his prodigal son, they'd lost their faith.
Wow.
Prodigal from Islam.
That's right.
Right.
I'm saying to them, it was like, they were like, he's left the faith.
Mm.
And
Wow.
so that's why the night that I went to get baptized a few weeks later, at the church that I became a Christian at, I came home after being baptized, and they disowned me and kicked me out of the house.
Right.
Because
Which
for
is
them,
kind of part of that cultural thing. Like you've become apostate in their eyes, and so
That's right.
they can renounce you.
That's right. I had dishonored them. I was thinking about that. I preached last Sunday at church, and I was talking about Mary, and I was saying, you got to understand, in the Middle Eastern culture for Mary, being pregnant out of wedlock was, there were there are honor killings that happen around that. The level, it's honor shame culture.
Joseph divorcing her is like the nicest thing he could do, right?
That's the tempered. That's right. That's the tempered accountability. And so trying to explain that to them. And honestly, like in the third row in my church, as I was preaching this, there's this Middle Eastern guy, and he was shaking his head. And afterwards he walked up and he goes, I know what that's like, because I'm from the Middle Eastern culture. When I became a Christian, my parents, I was dead to them. They bought a tombstone and put it in a graveyard.
Wow.
And said that with my name on it, because I was dead to them.
Which shows you how shockingly intense the father running in the prodigal son parable is, right? Because he would have done a similar kind of a thing. His son would have been dead to him.
That's right.
Wow.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, man. And so I think it's talk about counting the cost, of what it takes you. But can I just say, like, if you had told me the night that my dad basically kicked me out of the house, or the night that my parents told me that I brought shame to them, that one day my whole family would know the Lord.
Yeah, wow.
I would have been like, you don't know them. You don't know how hard. But can I tell you, one by one, God saved my family.
Wow.
I mean, one by one.
Praise God.
I'll never get over it, because like, just the power of the gospel, I was easy. I was up for grabs. I was an 18-year-old messed up kid. When God saved me, there was nothing right with me. Like, worst exchange rate ever. Like, a lot of people, like, they give up so much to come to God. I knew how bankrupt everything was in my life. I was so jacked up, so broken. There was no pride to lay foot of the cross with me. Like I was a messed
You're
up.
empty. Yeah.
Yeah, my dad was successful. My dad was educated. You know, my mom was, but yet they had to bend the knee.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
How long
And-
did it take before they came to Jesus?
Yeah. So I get kicked out of the house the night I became a Christian, right? Like I mean, the night I got baptized. And I moved in with 6 guys that lived in a 1-bedroom apartment, 7 house a house. And 5 months after I got kicked out of the house, one night my sister called me on the phone, and through Campus Crusade on her college campus, she'd come to know the Lord.
Wow.
So 5 months after my sister became a Christian. Then by the way, she's still at Liberty. She runs the missionary kid
Wow.
program with the shepherds there. So that was awesome.
Wow.
But so my sister becomes a Christian. Then 5 months after that, my mother calls me one night, and she's like, "Tonight I become a Christian."
Stop
I'm like,
it.
"Why are you yelling?" She goes, "I want your father to hear because he's not kicking me nowhere." So my mom becomes a Christian.
Your dad has just got to be furious at this point.
I mean, listen, he could kick me to the curb, but she wasn't having it. You know what I'm saying? So she becomes a Christian. She's putting Bible verses in his food, in his Rogaine,
His food.
everything.
It is a Rogaine.
That's funny.
So then my mom becomes a Christian. Then 5 months after that, so it was like I was on like this 5-month clock with the Nassers.
Dang.
Then 5 months later, my brother Benjamin,
Who's in heaven?
was in heaven, who's
Yeah.
Down syndrome.
Hmm.
God saved Benjamin, and
He went home
then
to be with Jesus in 2020, right?
he did, yeah. By far the godliest Nasser.
So
I mean,
sorry.
just with.
Wow.
And by the way, he loved you guys
Yeah, man.
so much. He
We were
loved.
cheering you and him on all the way through that journey. Man, that was
Thanks,
intense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, buddy. Yeah. So then Benji became a Christian, and then so it was like 5 months, and then 2.5 years later, my dad yelled out the name of Christ.
Wow.
And yeah, and so I'm just telling you, man, like everything that's happened in my life has been despite me, not because of me. Like I am just a walking example of undeserving grace and favor, you know? And I get choked up. I mean, just thinking about it right now. I mean, I tell this story all the time.
It's powerful.
But you never get over it. Like
No.
what God has done, you know?
Yeah.
How did you guys become Christians? Like, you know,
Wait. Who's driving here? You don't get it. You don't get it.
No,
We'll ask the questions here.
No, but what I was going to say
No.
was how you earlier started off with villain versus hero.
It's
and
very
just,
powerful.
I mean, that's your story. And I love that you mentioned that because you could have gone the other direction, but God reached out and saved you, and just how you've lived your life to help others and to be a hero. Yes, in the midst of all mistakes and all the things you've done, but like you also have been a willing vessel and just saying, yes, God. And even just hearing you say like about your wife, how she was just like, I just want whatever, like you guys have lived that out. And now getting to see, looking back and seeing how he radically saved you and saved your family. And also now just through ministry and helping people, like it's just such a beautiful picture of what God can do and what he's done in you. It's incredible.
Well, and just how many people that God's allowed you to touch along the way. I mean, you've written books, multiple books. You wrote your first in 2000, A Call to Die, Glory Reviled in 2007, Jumping Through Fires in 2009. You've continued to preach and evangelize and lead and serve. And I know in this season, you're stepping back into a more kind of traveling, preaching, writing ministry season. And it's just so clearly evident that God has his hand on your life. And, you know, and how many thousands upon thousands of teenagers and college students you and Jennifer have been able to impact through the season at Liberty alone. I mean, that is the largest Bible study of college students happening weekly in the country, maybe the world, right?
Yeah.
And I know from my connection to Passion Ministry, year after year, Liberty University was the largest delegation to Passion conferences every year. So, I mean, just the way that, and so many, who knows how many have gone to the mission field, gone into the ministry that you've had behind the scenes or directly a chance to touch. And so I just think back to like, the kid who invited you to youth group. It's like
Yes.
Exactly.
Wow.
who God knew, if do you are, I mean, who knows if this person has any idea how many people they've touched through that one small gesture.
Yeah. Well, first of all, you just rattled off like 5-6 things. And I think you guys know this more than me, because what God's done through you way excels. I mean, I know I'm not trying to, it's not false humility. Like, I know God's used me, but like, it is insane the way God is using the two of you and your family. Like, it is insane. Like, come on. Like, look what God has done in and through you, but you get it more than me because you've accomplished even more than I have. Like, your books actually sell. I'll buy them all.
Stop.
Yeah, my mom buys them all. It's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not Last Supper on the Moon, though.
Yeah.
Wow. Ouch.
But-
Thanks.
but they're not.
She's not wrong. My mom told me she will not read Last Supper on the Moon, by the way.
But I mean, seriously, like, isn't it crazy? Like, that first of all, they're not accomplishments. They're assignments.
Yeah.
Every one of them is undeserved. Like, when you say, like, you did this, I'm like, yeah, I don't know how. Like, when I got called to Liberty, I never finished college. But listen, if you're listening right now, you can become the senior vice president of a college and you don't have a college degree.
There you go.
Hello.
That is no grace.
Yeah.
That is undeserving favor. You can write books and be dyslexic and not know how to read them properly.
No, I
yourself.
laugh every time I hand a diploma out at Fresh Life Leadership College because I didn't graduate either. I'm like, this is good job for you. Way to go.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think God's so much more looking for availability than ability. Growing in the fruit of the Spirit instead of the gifts of the Spirit. And then it's amazing what God will do through the life of someone who just constantly is aware of their disqualifications and going, by the grace of God, I'm just available if you want to use me. I mean, when Chris called me about this particular assignment that I was just telling you guys earlier today, this is my last day in this particular seat, in this role for others. And for 2 years, it's just humbling to see what God has done. Like, the impact that we've been able to have in the life of foster children, funding we've been able to raise for great organizations. And it's just been incredibly humbling to see what God has done. But I miss preaching, and I feel like that's where I'm more gifted. Honestly, we've outgrown my ability to lead it well. Like, For Others has grown so fast, so big, so much impact, and it needs operational excellence. And I just suck at that. I'm not good at that. And I can build people around me that are better, but I know where my limitations are. And I know what I can do. There are things I do that God really anoints and really blesses. There are things I do, and I go, when I'm doing this, I'm happy. Other people around me are happier.
Mm-hmm.
Everything, it just feels right hand. And there are things I do that feels left hand. I'm right-handed, like feels.
Well, you mentioned just even like it grew to like a $14 million a year organization, right? What's happening at For Others this last year?
Yeah, our budget this year was right around 11. We wanted to make, and we were getting aggressive on that. Like, the first year I came here 2 years ago, our budget was 3.6. And this is just, people say, well, it's not about money. It's not, but that's like the gas in the dashboard gauge. It doesn't drive where you're going, but it funds where you're going and the things you want. And so our budget the first year was 3.8. God allowed us to raise like 6. This year, our budget was 11. We were like at 14.
Yeah.
And again, people go, how did you do it? I'm like, I think our cause is really dear to God's heart.
Yeah, sure. He's a defender of widows. I mean, and orphans, right? I mean,
we can't get ahead.
But here's my question, though, because it's obviously working, quote unquote, right? And so there's a sense in which you go, hey, like, this is working, all engines running, like, let's run with it. But you're in the midst of that, sensing a shift of seasons. And so I imagine in the midst of success, quote unquote, it'd be harder to walk away and follow God's Spirit into a less known, what's this going to be, where is this going to all happen? How did you discern God's will in the midst of all that?
Yeah, it's a really great question, because I'm in it now. I'm in the thick of it now. I mean, it's funny. We had just had last summer, we had just had an event, like a fundraising event. And I mean, it was insane. Carrie Underwood sang, Vince Gill sang, Nate Bargatze did comedy for us, all gave their time. We raised a ton of dough, brought a ton of partnerships along. I mean, we were punch drunk with like an avalanche of like, ooh, how did this happen?
Wow.
So I leave that and I go across the world to South Africa for my daughter's wedding. And on that long 14-hour flight,
Oh yeah.
I started listening to the audiobook of Strength to Strength by a guy named Arthur Brooks.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
The New York Times guy, right?
that's right.
Yeah,
He's a
yeah.
believer. And so that book kind of talks about these two kinds of leadership. Talks about crystallized leadership. And then the premise of the whole book is there's fluid leadership and crystallized leadership. Fluid leadership is like when you're young, scrappy, and hungry, right? And you're just like, you're starting things, you're entrepreneurial, you're pioneer spirit. You got fuzz on your antlers. You can just beat them up on things. Like you just got that going. Honestly,
Fire in the belly. It's the fire in the belly season. Yeah.
honestly, you're the quarterback. Like at best, God's assigning you to be the quarterback of an organization. And then you get to a moment where you don't have nearly that flexibility, stamina, all of that. You're no longer the quarterback. All of a sudden you become more like, oh, I think God's assigned me to be a coach. I can't dress out anymore. If I get hit, it takes 3 months for me to recoup.
Yeah.
Like I can. But then with the crystallized leadership, you have the ability to look at something and go, that won't work. That will work. You can recruit people that are better than you to do it. You have a lot of been there, done that,
Yeah.
And so how old are you, Levi?
We're both 41.
41.
Okay. So right around this age is what the book says. You start to notice the shift in your life.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it becomes more about mentorship than like you actually getting in. And so as I was reading that book, and I'm in my mid 50s, but I feel like I'm 40 just on immaturity alone.
50 is the new 40, David.
And I still like people like I don't feel like I'm very energetic and I'm not. But that book started messing me up because I was like, Lord, how do I want to take the next 5-10 years of my life and do it? And just because you've been successful at something doesn't mean God's calling you to keep doing it. And so we were looking and projecting like where it could go. And I knew that what it needed, I wasn't able to give, but I also knew what I'm really good at. And I'm saying that completely in the posture of humility.
Sure.
I'm only good at it because God's gifted me to be weird at a few things. I'm just really weird and good about 3 things. And then I kind of stink at a lot of other things. And so are you guys familiar with the 5 voices?
Mm-mm.
No.
It's insane. It's so fun to just take the 20-minute test as a family. But
Okay,
people
we'll
are
do
either
it.
nurturers.
5 voices.
5 voices.
Can you rattle them off? What are they?
Yeah, you're either a nurturer, a creative, a guardian, a connector, or a pioneer, primarily. And what I mean by that is you, Jennie, are all 5. So you are a nurturer, a creative, a guardian, a connector, and a pioneer. But the question is, what are the ones? Are you Jennie? Are you right-handed?
Yes.
Okay, so I am too. So there are 3. You're going to do all 5. God's crafted you to do all 5, but there's 3 that you're going to do with your right hand. What I mean by that is, if you ask me to write something in my left hand, like something long, it'll take twice as long. It'll cramp up my hand, and it won't look nearly as clean.
Right.
Mhm.
I do it with my right hand. So if you ask me to be a nurturer, if you ask me to be a guardian, that's my left hand. But if you ask me to be a creative, a pioneer, hold my drink. Let's go.
Hold my drink.
Like there are things that I know. And when you get older, God just humbles you to go like, you know what? It's all from him, but there's just things I'm not good at.
Mhm.
And there are things that I am good at.
Yeah.
And so I was looking at the 5 voices and at the same time reading this idea of like strength to strength, where I was thinking, I'm now at a crystallized leadership place. I don't nearly have this fluid, intelligent energy and all that. So I want to, and God's blessed me to be able to actually have the choice of going, what do I want to do? And so if these are the 5 gifts, how do I just wake up and do the 3? The 3, I'm a pioneer. Like I here's another way to put it. Jesus was three things. Jesus was prophet, priest, king. He was all three 100%, 100%, 100%, 100%.
Yeah.
And I'm not. Like, I'm more of a prophet, certainly not kingly, meaning I'm certainly not hardwired for governance leadership. And I'm not shepherdly. I love people, but if I have to do 5 hospital visitations, I'm just dead at the end of the day.
I need a month to recover from it. Yeah.
Yeah. And shepherds ask themselves the question, are people loved well? Are people loved well? Jennie, you are a shepherd on crack.
1,000%. Yeah.
You are a shepherd, a shepherd, a shepherd.
It was shepherd on crack.
A shepherd on crack. That would be an interesting thing to
You're
see,
a crack
wouldn't it? The sheep would be very well watered. Too well watered.
Levi's a prophet.
Yes.
Honestly, he's a prophet for right now. He's one of God's great prophets, right? Our people taught well. And so Jesus was all three, but we have to learn, like, hey, you know what? And which is why God will put a prophet and a shepherd together.
Right.
I'm not very governance driven. Kings aren't necessarily leaders. Kings are thinking systems. Like the best king I know right now is Chris Hodges.
Indeed.
Is such a system builder.
Yes.
Everything he sees systems. You and I, Levi, are more prophets. We just see the vision of what could be and all these different things, but we don't want details to get in the way.
Right.
Yeah.
By the way, on our way to profiting, we'll leave a trail of worn out people, and the Jennies of the world come along and go, are they loved well? Are they nourished? Did their feelings get hurt? And so I'm giving you all this to say, when you become a student and you become porous of like, hey, I'm still learning. I was at a place in my life this summer where I was like, these are the 5 voices. There's 3. Honestly, there's one that I do best. How do I get to take the next 10 years of my life and do that the most? And then how do I do it with a crystallized leadership thing where I'm mentoring others to do it?
Beautiful.
So
jumping the curve. You're jumping the curve, David.
That's right.
Yeah.
So man, so the thing was, this ministry was growing and it was excelling, and for others was blowing up more than ever. And Chris and I are dear friends, and so I didn't want to let my friend down.
Right.
So going to him with my hat in my hand and saying, hey, buddy, I feel like I just miss preaching and I feel like that's what I want to do. And he was so gracious. And honestly, I think he'll never say it, but I bet they were frustrated at some of my lack of ability to govern well, operational. You know what I'm saying? I suck at that.
But that being said, leaving at the top is better than it crashing down. You know what I mean? Like you took it to what your high water mark maybe is, and learn from Jordan. Go out at the top. Don't come back and try and again and again. You know what I mean?
100%, man. Yeah. And so like then we have this lady that left an $80 million a year organization as the COO to come and help us because she had a heart for foster children and orphans. So she left. I mean, she took a lot of skin in the game. Like she took pay cut, all these different things. And I met her husband. Her husband is the keyboard player for Toby Mac. And so Wyatt. So I met her through it, and I was like, she's so overqualified. She would never take this job. But she came on our system for others and helped create Traction and 90 and all these operation systems we needed to like get ready. She built the chassis
to take it to the next
level.
Wow.
So as I was feeling like God's calling me to exit out, the beauty of the succession was Deb has now been able to step into this place, and honestly, buckle up. They're going to take it to places I could never take it.
Wow. Awesome. Yeah.
Because you just know, like God wants you to maybe help an organization for the season, but like the health of Fresh Life will be, the evidence of it will be the day that you guys pass the baton and he goes further than you could have ever taken it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Because of the succession plan that God's given you.
Amen.
And
Beautiful.
You just celebrate that, So I say all that to say I miss preaching and I want to go out and do that more and write more. There's been some interest in my goofy story being made a movie. And so
cool.
Wow.
Hey,
come on.
Hey, all the things.
Yeah. So, hey, who would you play in my movie, Levi? Like maybe the guy that
Ooh, good question. I'm gonna be the pastor sweating from places that don't have glands.
No.
I'm gonna get a prosthetic toupee. I'm gonna have like sweaty armpits, but I'm gonna be there. That's my role. I already picked it.
I love it. We got to get
Wow.
you in it, dude.
And did your dad do helicopters? I was just thinking, did he do helicopters in Texas too?
No,
He didn't end up doing
was a
that.
helicopter pilot. He took flight training. He was an instructor pilot, and then when he came to America, he didn't get to do that.
What did he do in the States?
Dude, talk about just Middle Eastern work ethic. He hustled. You know what I mean? Like my dad came here, and he just like whatever I needed to do to provide for my family. So he ended up opening a rug shop, like an Oriental rug shop. And then he dabbled in custom framing. And then he opened up a restaurant called Café de France. And that thrived.
Wow.
Mhm.
It ended up becoming a really, really big thing. As a matter of fact, can I tell you the 3-minute story?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, because we were talking about like how someone had witnessed to me, but even before that, the backstory of that backstory is, I'm smoking weed with my buddy in front of my house, finishing up one last joint, and he's inviting me to go to church. So I go in to ask my parents if I can go to church, but I thought there's no way my dad's going to let me go to a Christian church.
Yeah.
So I walk down, this is when I was 18 and 2 months old. I walk down the hallway and I knock on my parents' bedroom door that night, and I asked if I could go to church. But instead of saying no, like in his bed, really loud, my dad yelled, "What is the name of the church?" Okay. And what I didn't know was that 2 weeks before I get invited to church by my pothead buddy, there were these people that had shown up at my dad's restaurant, because my dad opened up a restaurant,
Cafe France.
Café de France. That's
France.
right.
Strong.
And
The
they had shown up at
France.
the restaurant. There's not a lot of demand for Iranian cuisine in Alabama. So,
So he was French food.
it's French food. Café de France. It was in the yeah,
To be
fancy.
clear.
To be clear, I just
France
went.
means
I
French.
assumed after the Oriental rug shop, it would have been Persian food, but no.
I know. No, he opened the Café de France. So the night I asked him if I can go to church. He's asking what? Because what I didn't know was that 2 weeks before I'm asking if I can go to church, these Christians had basically parachuted into Café de France. We're talking about a guy named Aubrey Edwards, who was the worship pastor of the church, and a few other people. They'd come there to eat lunch. And while they were eating lunch, they saw how he was shorthanded on wait staff. And instead of complaining about the bad service, these people got up, rolled up their sleeves, and waited on tables at my dad's restaurant.
Stop.
Oh my
serve it.
gosh.
And then they went back the next day, served them again. They helped the entire lunch rush. And then Aubrey invited my dad to choir practice. And my dad doesn't give a rip about choir practice, but because kindness is a superpower, my dad went to freaking choir practice, bro. And then he took a piece of paper and he said, "Hey, this is my friend, Mr. Nasser. He needs helpers right now at his restaurant." I told him we'll volunteer for free. And they passed around a piece of paper at choir and they all signed up for shifts. And for 2 weeks, these Christians had been serving my dad at Café de France.
Wow.
I didn't know any of this.
So he went to the church before you ever did.
Yeah, well, he didn't go to church. The church went to him, right?
Well, he went to choir practice,
Totally, bro. Yeah,
Yeah.
except, yeah. So then,
Oh my gosh.
2
which
weeks
is always
later-
a great pre-evangelism. Love a good choir practice on the road to salvation.
That's exactly right. So then I'm asking my dad if I can go to church. And instead of saying no, he goes, "What is the name of it?"
Wow.
And it's it was Shades Mountain Baptist. It was the exact same people that had been helping him out. So when I told my dad the name of it, he goes, "I know those people. You can go there." So the reason I got to go to church, the reason I got to pastor a church in inner city Birmingham, the reason I got to be the campus pastor at Liberty University, the reason I got to serve foster children and for others, the reason I'm on this daggone podcast right now with you is because a bunch of people, because a worship leader named Aubrey Edwards went to my dad's restaurant and led worship, not with a daggone microphone in his hand, but with a towel.
Doing dishes.
Dang.
That's great.
But
That's-
my dad, the reason I got a yes was because Christians showed up.
Wow.
And so, yeah, my dad opened a restaurant. But
Well,
isn't God just so good?
Oh
that's a
my
beautiful
gosh.
story. And it's
Thank you
it's
for sharing
yeah,
that.
thank you. It's an
Yeah.
inspiration to think of everyone listening. Every moment is an opportunity. Like you said, the 1040 window is real and needs to be reached, and may God send people there. But at the same time, every restaurant, every small interaction, every Uber ride
That's
is a
right.
chance to be awake and aware of the Spirit of God wanting to move in our hearts and lives with the people around us that are real people, you know?
You got a T-shirt on that says Advent, the wonder of Advent. And honestly, Advent isn't just about our longing and our waiting, but it's about our awareness that everyone we run into is ultimately waiting, whether they know it or not. If they don't know the Lord, they're waiting on someone to show them the Lord.
Yeah.
They're waiting too, you know?
Come
Yeah.
on.
And so, you know, we're in a season of Advent in the sense that we're not just in a season of Advent in that there's this longing for his second return for believers, but there's this longing in the heart of people. They're waiting to see if Christianity is real.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
They're waiting to see if we're legit. And again, like it was kindness from Aubrey Edwards and those Christians that massaged my dad's heart to where he said yes.
That's
You
so
know?
good. Paul
Yeah.
said, one sows, one waters, but God gives the increase. And it's just clear God was working in your life and in your family's life before any of it was, visible.
Yeah.
I also love it's January 24th today. And yes, I am wearing a Christmas shirt, but my friend Lisa Harper did tell me that we didn't know this when we went on a tour with her, that Advent originally had nothing to do with Christmas. It was in the new year helping get new Christians ready for baptism before Lent. And Advent originally was all about second coming and repentance and holiness and being ready for what God wanted to do. And only later it got connected to the Christmas of the first Advent. So it's only a relatively modern thing that Advent is first coming. It has always been about ready for second coming. So it is interesting.
I love what you guys are doing with Advent. And I hate you guys were like near me. We're in Cool Springs.
I'm so sad we didn't get to hang out. Yeah, we were in Cool Springs.
Man.
Spring Hill.
Spring Hill. Yeah. But you were in Nashville.
We were in Nashville, and we will hang out next time we're there, brother.
Man, I'd love to grill you a big fat steak next time you come to town.
That sounds great. Although I'm trying to keep it's New Year, got to keep my cholesterol down. But yes, I do want one of your fasts. Your cooking. That's the other thing too. You and your wife's hospitality and
You guys
culture
are such
and
a great
sense of
team.
interior design and space and story. It's phenomenal.
That's all, Jennifer. What are you guys doing? I know you're gearing up for heading out for Passion, right?
Yes.
Yep.
What about that? What are y'all doing?
Well, we are just Luskos just all day long. They keep us in the salt factory, David. They keep that's what we do. So is it day outside? Is it night outside? I don't know.
We don't know.
It's just dark in here.
We have dark, but also
we
bright.
have the purpley blue lights here. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, lots of irons in the fire like you, just all the things and enjoying time with the kids. You know, Livia's graduating this year from high school, from Liberty as well. And she is praying about what's next. We've done a couple college visits. We're praying about what she wants long-term to be a part of the ministry at Fresh Life here. We're just praying about what, the best that the Spirit would speak to her as she navigates that. So, gosh, having, as you know, one fly the coop is wild. We're also headed to South Africa this year, not for the wedding, for some preaching ministry down there. So, yeah.
Are you going to Cape Town or just
Joburg?
Joburg, come on.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well,
you know what, one of the things I love about you is you so often, I just don't think about you, Levi, ever as a solo. You either have Jennie or you have the kids. Like whenever you came to Liberty, we were like thinking through like, all right, multiple bedrooms, everyone's coming, multiple meals. And I love that you have allowed your children to just be fully ingrained in the work that you're doing and in the partnership that you're doing. I have this distinct memory of when it was COVID, Jennie, and we had Levi stay over to speak at the football stadium because everyone had to be 6 feet apart from each other.
Yes.
I remember you side stage just praying heaven down as Levi was preaching. And
The joy of my life, honestly.
Yeah, I just think of the partnership that you guys have always had. And again, not just you, buddy, but your bride and your children and the way they're just all hands on deck is
Thank you,
such
David.
a example of just co-laboring as a family.
So sweet. Oh, well, David, this time's been amazing. Those are kind words, appreciated words.
You and Jennifer.
We care about you guys. We're believing God for whatever's next. Can't wait till we can get you at Fresh Life.
Yes.
And next time we're in Nashville, I think I will have a steak.
Fat steak.
I'm having a big fat steak.
All right, we're doing it.
All right, bro. Thanks a lot for coming on, sharing your story. I know on behalf of everybody listening, all the winding tentacles of this conversation were so wonderful.
Yes.
So, all right. Bless you, bro.
Love you guys.
Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to swing by levilusko.com and jennielusko.com to see what's going on in our world.
And make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. And in the meantime, we would love to connect with you on social media.
Jennie and Levi Lusko, out.
Access more